Is it the key factors of bring it in and keep it here?
I don't think that scheme has that thought, to
Okay, the scheme don't
uh,
have that thought. Okay.
yeah, the thought that by having this voluntary scheme with the purpose to attract, to make the companies reporting more income within Malaysian border, like a state bringing more funds, for example. So I mean, the purpose of the objective of the scheme is not about that, but mostly about just a simple one, just to collect more tax revenue. Now, come back to that question. Let's say we jump out from and address your questions. Would that work? No, I will believe that at the end, um, how our company's tax rate can be more consistent or more coherent with what we see in international level. Because our company tax rate, to some extent, even though I'm not saying that we are the highest among the highest, but we are certainly not among the lowest. And then, so can we therefore harmonize our company tax rate so that it becomes more competitive at international level? Make it a flat one, lower one, then you have fewer tax exemptions, so that it makes the whole tax systems cleaner, easier. You don't have so much loopholes for companies to not to say evade, but to avoid the tax. So that involves therefore a much harder work when it comes to the tax system. But
Agree. Agree.
that's a bigger question.
Yeah, agree. In fact, the community, the tax community, the community by and large has been asking for a simpler, lower tax, but broaden the base, take away all the incentive, don't make it so complicated. And then everyone share out the burden and responsibility of growing the country together, to actually, and that makes us a tax-friendly places. So whether it's a voluntary disclosure program or whatever, it is no longer needed, because you don't feel much of a burden when paying it. Yeah, which is true. So it's interesting to see the third time rolling out. In addition to revenue collections, are there also any other things that the government is looking and hope to achieve? If I may, for the benefit of our audience today, if you look into Indonesia, when Indonesia announced their amnesty, they announced a very cheap penalty rate. Malaysia this time around are saying fully exempted, meaning there's no 100% way for penalty, so it's very, very good. So Singapore, I think Indonesia, that at the time it was like 1 or 2 or 2 or 3% penalty, so it's also very cheap. So you see there was an evident or influx of funds into Indonesia, but at the same time, the country announced their whole long list of plan moving ahead, including their relocation of their capitals and etc. All those big gigantic like 10 years plan that they had. So, and that managed to retain the money. So it's no longer the hot money that's floating around. So I'm hoping that when that was actually announced for the third time, it's because voluntary disclosure program is no longer new for Malaysian. So it requires more effort than just a waiver or penalty. That is my own personal hope. That's own personal hope. Aside,
but I don't think ours is with this kind of is what I call it, having this long thought, that we want to attract the capital inflow so that it can be kept here to, I don't think it works that way.
They just want revenue, huh? Okay. Now let's move on to this other topic that in the reading of the budget, I find this interesting, and I think this really worth looking into. We see that the government intend to, they intend to release these those bankruptcy cases that is below 50,000. Starting from March the 1st, 2023. So you will have a certain number of people coming out and they are now clean in a way. I think that is what it meant. Is this an undercurrent risk in any sorts? Because I believe these sectors of bankruptcy cases are they are mainly people maybe who are having credit cards debts, may even be B40. So are we cultivating the right spending behavior, or cultivating the right understanding about loan repayments, and encourage the right consumption and spending, to spare our domestic? What's your thought, Dr. Wong?
Yeah, I can understand that fear because, like what Agnes you said, it may create a kind of moral hazard, because after all, my debt can be being waived, and then why should I care? Next time when I being in the bankruptcy again, then I can be discharged easily.
Release.
Yeah, but I would like to put this policy under its historical background. Because if we do remember that the threshold for individual to be announced bankruptcy will be from 50,000 to 100,000, right? So it was during 2020. Now, it is now 3 years after that policy amendment. So, and don't forget that under this Insolvency Act, the Director General of Insolvency, DGI, has the right, after 3 years of an individual being announced bankruptcy, to revise his or her case if he or she can be being cleaned from insolvency. So if we take that into account, which means that those who being announced insolvent because of for the value of 50,000 and below in 2020. So after 3 years by today, 2023, so even without this budget announcement, so the DGI also has the discrepancy, or has the discretion really to review the case to grant the discharge automatically. So what this budget has done is to make this process faster, rather than asking the DGI to review case by case. So once all these individuals, they fulfill that condition, which I don't know yet what conditions they have imposed. So as long as they fulfill the condition, and then their case will be cleaned automatically. I mean, so that is not too much of the government discretion, but it is also coherent to what has been under the law at this moment. All right, so in that sense, I will believe that the fear that we have just now, creating the moral hazard among the young, can be minimized.
Well, a debt is still a debt. It's still required to be paid.
I believe that they have to somehow clear the debt, or to show that they have a stable income to satisfy the obligation. And then only then they will be allowed to be discharged. I don't think it's without condition. It has to satisfy certain condition, which I believe that according to the law that we have at this moment, you must at least show that you have a stable streams of income to satisfy that obligation.
Okay. Now, one of the problem with Malaysia is we don't have enough people, So hence, I think the first time we had our forum, Dr. Wong, that was actually last year during our moving forward to 2023. Now it's 2023 now. We talked about SMEs, what is the future of SMEs? Can you just be domestically, live here, grow here, and not going cross-border? Or in order to ensure your sustainability and growth, you do need to explore the opportunity to go further. And I remember we spoke about that, and we said that one of the reasons why businesses do need to actually think beyond just Malaysia is also because our domestic spending somehow is our purchasing power as compared to certain country, maybe Singapore. Honestly, we are not as big. Various reasons. Our income per capita, it's not there. We are lower, etc., etc. So hence, it's actually important. So now, on growing the domestic spending again, the government will be setting up, right, this Consumer Credit Act, to monitor the buying scheme, especially they call it the buy and pay later scheme, right? So economically, is the buying habit of buy now, pay later, is it a healthy spending pattern? Yeah, because this is a product that it can be afforded by certain sector, not by all, but I want to expand my market share. So I do this. So is it I mean, from economic standpoint, is it a good habit to cultivate?
You see, when we have debt financing on our purchase, um, it should satisfy the condition. The goods supposed to be durable, right? Not the consumable, not the current kind of consumption, but it has to be durable goods. I mean, principally, for a very simple reason, because when you have to service the debt across a certain period of times, so you have to ensure that during that certain period of time, you enjoy the flow of services from the durable goods you've purchased. Like, for example, you buy a house with a mortgage loan because you enjoy your housing services from the house that you purchase with the debt. You own a car during and you borrow a debt, you raise, for the 5 years, let's say, and you enjoy services given by your car during that 5 years. And the cars won't be perishable after, let's say, 3 days, after a week, right? So that's supposed to be the principle of that finance consumption. Now, the problems with this buy now and pay later is, for me, right, from my point of view, is it violates this principle. So it's basically you buy a consumer goods, you perishable goods with debt. So even before you complete servicing your debt, the goods that you have purchased has already perished, which means that you have to replace, you have to substitute the perished items with a new purchase, with a new debt, even before you complete servicing the previous one. So in that sense, it makes, like I said, it violates the reason why we have that when it comes to the consumption, purchase. And then the second is what it makes borrowing much easier and faster. Even though from business point of view, it may sounds good, because that's where our market is, because people can consume. But it won't be good from the overall economic point of view, because it creates what we call a systemic risk, a risk that can create chaos, have a huge ripple effect once you have that problems, that insolvency problems that happen later on. It will affect not just individuals, not just households, not just companies, but also banks as well. So once the financial system, the credit system is in trouble, then the whole economy will be really in a mess. So I guess that this kind of precautionary steps, even though it may make the debt financing scheme tougher, and it may probably put some, it may make the view of the business slower, but I believe that it is a necessary evil. Otherwise we are going to see a bigger devil later on.
Yeah, buying what you can't afford sometimes is something that I think it is a catch-22 for businesses. I need to make it affordable regardless, right? But for the consumer, you do need to actually see what you can afford, isn't it?
The problems with the buy now pay later is you use that to buy something affordable, because the idea of having a debt is to buy something not affordable at this moment, but maybe affordable in the future because of your high income later on. All right, so that's why you have a 30 years for your mortgage loans, because you may not be affordable for you today, but you know that with the income that you have, it is actually affordable in the future. So that's supposed to be the idea of having debt to finance the consumption. Now, but the problem now is with these schemes, even affordable items, low price items, you also borrow money to buy, so that's really create a bad habit actually.
Correct. So when I read the budget, doctor, so what I actually see is like those bankruptcy cases to be released maybe by definition, right, they will be released now because of the other reading of the act.